even if you lost it, you've got the right to take it back. Does anybody need to take anything back in 2008? I know some of you raised your kids right. You did everything you knew to do. You took them to church. You taught them the things of God. But the devil snuck right into your house, and he put a hook in their jaw, and he started dragging them out. But I've come to tell you, your babies are coming home. The devil may have them right now, but he's going to turn loose of them. As for you and your house, you're going to serve the Lord. Some of you have lost your homes due to foreclosure, and the devil laughed in your face and said you'll never own one again. Again, I've come to tell you the devil is a liar. He may have a hold of it right now, but this is only a temporary setback. Your comeback is going to be greater than your setback. It's time for you to shake it off of you and say, greater is he that's in me than he that is in the world, and I'm going to take back everything the devil has stolen. Maybe you've lost health in your body. Or maybe you know you deserve that promotion and you got passed over. That's all right. Promotion comes from the Lord. Maybe you went through a divorce. You've gone through pain and heartache and heartbreak. Maybe your cities are like my city. There are neighborhoods controlled by gangs. They tell you can't go there. The police won't even go to some neighborhoods without wearing bulletproof vests. Fire and rescue won't even go in without a police escort. And they tell us that the gangs have taken over certain neighborhoods in the city. Look at your neighbor and say, it's time.
It's time.
My God, I hope somebody can hear me today. Maybe you went through a time of burnout where you gave everything you had. And the ingratitude of a few overshadows the appreciation of the many. And you feel forgotten, unloved, unvalued. The devil's telling you nobody cares about you. You may as well give up. Maybe you watch the church down the road grow and flourish while you're struggled. Or you watched your in-laws or your outlaws or your brother-in-law, your sister-in-law do well while you're living better than they are. And you're living better than they are before God, but they're living better than you are in the world. And you're like, Lord, what's wrong with this picture? I'm supposed to be blessed, and they're not even trying. Does it ever bother you when you're doing everything you know? Now, we're just talking, when you're doing everything you know to do, and you watch people around you aren't even trying? It seems like they're happier than you are, and they got more money in the bank, and, just good stuff's happening for them. And your fingers have been pried off of something God said you can have. The Lord said to Joshua, arise. Somebody say arise. Cross over this Jordan. Somebody say cross over the Jordan. You and all this people to the land. Now notice this, which I am giving to them. Some translations say to the land which I have already, and that seems to be the indication in the Hebrew. It is the land which I have already given to you. Now it's important that you also understand, and hear me closely, you need to get this, that anytime you begin to step up and move out, to repossess or to claim something that's been promised, you can count on opposition. I know that doesn't make you shout. I know that doesn't stir you up and excite you. But the devil's not going to roll over and play dead just because you got a word from the Lord. I know some of you come to this conference, you get pumped, you get excited, you get worked up. You're all emotional. You go back home and you face real life. And within a few days, all the wind is knocked out of your sails. and you had your head up and your shoulders back, but within a few days your head is bent low and your shoulders are dropping toward the ground. And opposition is right in your face. You can count on it. Someone said it very adequately, at every level there is another devil. At every crossroads, at every dimension, there is another issue that you've got to deal with. There is another circumstance or situation that you've got to face. There is another line that you have to cross. But God is calling us to be line crossers. Now, it's important that I also say that Satan is a master barrier builder. He works passionately at building barriers. And in a true sense, that's what a line is. Let me define a line. A line is meant to confine or to limit, to restrict or to define, to inhibit, to stunt growth, to stop progress. A line is designed to designate or to protect. It is the idea of segregation or separation. It is a barrier that is meant to divide or limit. And what's interesting is when Israel came out of Egypt, they had to cross a line called the Red Sea. They got on the other side, God closed the water, and He said, you'll never go back across that water again. They come to the land of Canaan, and guess what? There's another line that they've got to cross. It's called the Jordan River. They get on the other side, as we're going to find out in just a moment. They get on the other side of the Jordan River, and they face another line. This time, it's a city that's surrounded by walls called Jericho. And at every level, at every transition, there was a boundary or a border or a barrier, something that was meant to limit them and hold them back. You need to understand something. The devil is devising everything he can to limit you. Now, he knows some of you are so turned on to Jesus. You're so in love with God, you're not going back to the world. You've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. You don't want to go back there. He knows you're on your way to heaven, but he said, if I can't keep them from going to heaven, if I can just limit them, if I can just keep them sick, broke, busted, and discouraged, if I can keep them bitter, if I can keep them caught up in conflict and strife and division, if I can get them to bounce from one church to another and make their annual migration, if I can just hold them down and keep them back and limit them, I can stop their productivity and their effectiveness. That's why adversity happens in your life. That's why you're dealing with what you're dealing with. That's why it seems like at moments all of hell, has anybody ever felt like that? All of hell has broken loose against you. And you're doing everything you know to do, and you're surrounded with opposition. You know what? That's really a good sign. That tells you that you're standing at the brink of a transition. It tells you that you are about to come out of one thing into another thing. One of the great mistakes that we make, however, is that when we find ourselves in that position, normally we get discouraged and we get frustrated and we end up quitting right as God is getting ready to birth something new in our lives. But I've come to Riverside, California to tell you it's no time for you to give up. It's not time for you to quit. It's not time for you to get discouraged. I know you've been knocked down, but get back up. I know that it seems like you'll never get the victory, but keep on fighting. I know the devil told you you'd never make it, but I've come to tell you your victory is just over the next horizon. If you can step over the line, if you can just muster enough faith that says, God, I'm going to trust you. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know how it's going to work out. I don't know how you're going to do it, but I know that you cannot lie. And I know that you're the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, and you've never failed, and you never failed to promote your word and to bring it to pass. I'm going to trust you to cross the line. Everybody say, cross the line. When we cross the line, The things. I asked Pastor Richard, said, how long can I preach? He said, preach till 9:30. No, Rob, I'll tell you honestly, he said, preach as long as you want, but at 9:30 everybody's going to go home. He didn't say that. Some of you thought he did. The limitations, everybody said limitations. The limitations are varied, extremely diverse. Sometimes the limitations are the opinions of other people. The line that some of you are going to have to cross is the fear of what other people think about you. And isn't it amazing how things somebody spoke 20 years ago can still affect your life years down the line? Some of you are so afraid that they're going to think you're a fanatic. You're so afraid that they're going to think you're Pentecostal. You're so afraid that you're going to be labeled as a radical that you don't have the courage to cross the line. For some of you, it might be tradition, religious tradition. And you know what makes religious tradition so potent? We've done it and believed it so long, most of the time we can't distinguish between tradition and truth. Because that's the way we've always done it. We don't know why, we've just done it because that's what we do. Now, sure, it hasn't worked, but that's what we do. And we can't compromise. And so we allow the philosophies of men, and we allow man-made limitations to be imposed upon us. And we die in the desert on the border of the promised land. Maybe it's societal. They told me when I went to Cleveland, they said, you can't build a multicultural church here. It doesn't happen. Cleveland is one of the most segregated cities in the nation. Said it doesn't happen here. I remember the day the wealthiest woman, the biggest giver in my church came to me. She said, Pastor, I'm concerned because our church has become too racially diverse, and I don't want to be associated with a church like this. And I said, well, I'm very sorry, but this is what God has called us to do. And I'll never forget the day that she stood up and she said, all right, if you persist in this direction. She said, me and my friends are taking our money and we're going somewhere else. And she said, I don't want to be associated with a church full. And she used the N-word and white trash. And she got up and she walked out. I said, we're really going to miss you. I said, there are about 15 empty chairs right up here in the front. Who wants them? And you know what? A bunch of people jumped up from the back and ran up to the front. Now, what you got to understand is that was right at the time that we're getting ready to close on the building that we're buying. We get down to the night that we're supposed to close. The night before, we're supposed to close at 9 o'clock in the morning. I find out I'm $7,000 short and don't have the money to close. And all I can think about is that woman that got up and walked out. I'm trying to sleep. I'm tossing and I'm turning. I can't get any rest. I finally get up and go downstairs and lay on the couch because I don't want to disrupt my wife's sleep. And if I hadn't done it, I never would have heard my cell phone because it was charging in the kitchen. I'm laying in the family room on the couch and I hear my phone ringing. I'm thinking, who's calling me at 2:30 in the morning? I hold my head up over the couch and I look at the clock on the stove to make sure it's right. I stumbled to my phone. I picked it up. I said, hello. There was a woman on the other line. She said, Pastor, I'm on my way to your house. She doesn't go to our church. She hadn't talked to me in months. I don't know anything about the woman. She said, I'm on my way to your house. I said, sister, it's 2:30 in the morning. Why are you coming to my house? She said, I was asleep, but God woke me up and told me to bring you $7,000 in cash. And I told him I'd bring it in the morning. But God said, no, get up and take it right now. He needs it in the morning. And you know what? I was at the bank when it opened. I deposited the cash. I got the check, the cashier's check from the bank, went to the title company and closed on the building. And in 4 years, we've paid our mortgage in half with a church full of people that she didn't want to be associated with. I'm telling you, with God, anything is possible. Don't allow what people say or don't allow what people think to limit what God is trying to do in your life. It may seem like a barrier, but you got to get over it. Cross the line. I got to say this one. Sometimes the line is the people you hang with. I tell my church all the time, be careful who your friends are. Because your companions will determine the level that you live your life at. If you hang out with people that aren't going where you're going, the very best thing that will happen is they'll slow you down. The most likely thing that will happen is they'll get you off track completely. You know, as a pastor, I watch new people coming in. I can tell real quickly how much potential they have. If they hook up with the right folks, I know they've got a good future. But how many know every church has a complaint department? I have one dear lady, I've tried every way in the world to run her off. I can't offend her bad enough to get rid of her. I even said to her in my office one day, I said, you know what? I said, you don't seem to like what's going on here. It's really troubling you. I said, rather than sitting in the service and making notes about what I preach that you don't like and everything that happens in the service that you don't agree with, why don't you just go somewhere else? I said, I'm blessing you to go. She jumped up. She said, well, let me tell you something, Pastor. You didn't send me here, and you're not running me out. And she walked right out of my office. Why is it the people you want to get rid of, you can't run them off? But you see, some of you have a call on your life. You've got a gift and an anointing that God has deposited within you. You've been set aside from the foundation of the earth, and you're hooked up with people that aren't going anywhere. You're surrounded by doubters, and you're surrounded by people that have no vision, and they've got no sense of direction, and all they do is feud and fight and go from one problem to another problem, and one crisis to another crisis, and one difficulty to another one, and they never get focused, and you're still hanging with them. I got one now. I'm going to hit you and run. Just give me a few moments here. This is why you see most broke folks stay broke. Because they hang out with broke folks. And exchange all of the same information. Have you noticed people that have bad marriages hang out with people that have bad marriages? You see all these single guys, you know, there'll be 5 or 6 of them. Not enough among them to buy a Coke. And they're sitting there and they're checking out all the babes as they come in. And, man, I'd take her. Oh, yeah. No, she's not good enough for me. They don't even have a job. Still living in their mama's house. Borrowing their daddy's car. You need to get around somebody that's gone where you haven't gone. You need to get around somebody that knows what you don't know. They've seen what you haven't seen. They've been exposed to something that you've never had the opportunity to be a part of. And I know it's difficult. We get attached to folks. but I love him. Oh, he's got such a nice car. I had a young girl tell me. I said, the guy you're going to marry, he's not even saved. She said, I know, Pastor, but he's got a really nice car. That's going to help you when crisis comes. There's some folks you got to walk away from. Some of you are hooked up with people that aren't going anywhere. Some of you as pastors are fighting to keep the very people in your church that God's trying to get out of your church so that He can bring growth and increase. And you're trying to sweet talk them and tell them how sweet they are and how wonderful they are and how much you love them and how much you care about them. Every now and then you need to look at them and say, God bless you. It's been interesting. I'll see you in heaven on the other side. God bless you. Some of you hanging out with family members and you're hanging out with guys in the hood and the kids on the corner that you got no business hanging out with. And it's a line that you got to cross. And there's a time that you got to stand up and say, I love you. I appreciate you. I'll pray for you, but I'm going somewhere. I can't die in the desert. Stay here if you want to, but I've stood on the mountain. I've looked across the valley. I know there's a land flowing with milk and honey. I know there's another realm in the Spirit. I know there's another dimension of the Holy Ghost, and I can't stay here. I've got to cross over the line and possess my promised land. You see, I know some of you think I'm fanatical. I'm not like this at 9 o'clock. In my 9 o'clock service, I just simply teach. But there's a line, every level of breakthrough. And as long as you're afraid to risk failure, you'll never know real success until you're willing to risk it all. Tell your neighbor, say, risk it all. Oh, no. Tell them out loud, say, risk it all. Oh, but I don't want to lose this. What if they leave me? What if this happens? What if that happens? What is the theme of our conference? Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path. The real question is, who are you trusting in? Are you trusting in the people you're hanging with? Are you trusting in your neighborhood? Are you trusting in your congregation? Are you trusting in the place where you're employed? Are you trusting in the government, or are you trusting in the Lord? If your confidence is in God, you can be a line crosser. God comes to Joshua, and I've got to fix this now. Find a way to put an end to it. God comes to Joshua and He says, Moses is dead. Can I have about 10 minutes? That's fine. 10 is suitable. I can do it. God says, Moses is dead. Now get up. Everybody say, get up. And possess what I promised him. 3 things. If you're writing, write this down quickly. This is my sermon. That was the introduction. This is sermon. Number 1. If you're going to cross the line to possess what you haven't possessed, anybody ready to do that? No 8. Anybody ready to go where you've never gone? See what you've never seen? Have what you've never had? Anybody want more anointing? Wave at me. Anybody want a closer, more intimate relationship with God? Anybody want to fulfill purpose? You want to accomplish your life mission? If that's you, wave at me. How do you get there? 3 things. Number 1, everybody say, exchange your history. No, you got to talk to me. I might need 15 if you lose me here. Everybody say, be willing to exchange your history for your destiny. You've got to be willing to exchange your history for your destiny. And you know what's so interesting is we all have both. Every one of us have a history. And the devil is prolific at getting us to hold on to what was, to the point that we miss what God is trying to do in our future. An entire generation died in the desert because they could not exchange their history for their destiny. God had delivered their bodies, but their minds were still held captive. And in spite of all the miracles and supernatural things that were happening, they kept thinking they were incapable and they were ill-equipped and they could not possess it. And because they believed they couldn't, they couldn't. And an entire generation died in the desert. All they could think about was the leeks and the garlic in Egypt. They forgot about the Pharaoh. They forgot about the slave driver that stood over them with the whip. They forgot about the pain and the rejection and the heartache. They forgot about the fact that their babies were slaughtered and their workload was immense. All they could think about was there were leeks and garlics. There were a few things that were pleasurable. And isn't it amazing how that is human nature? That we have the propensity to hold on to the past and we almost develop selective amnesia. We can remember the good stuff. We forget about all the bad stuff. You know, I hear folks all the time talking about when they were in the world and reliving the pleasures of sin. Yeah, there were some pleasures in sin, but there were also some grave consequences. Like waking up in the morning with your head bent over the toilet. And you couldn't remember what you did or who you did it with. All you knew is you had a headache that you could not believe and you were broke. And there's somebody in your room. And you're not sure who they are or why they're there. We call it the pleasures of sin, but there were consequences as well. If you're going to remember it all. I know church folks talking about the good old days. I always want to go back to the good old days. The way the old folks did it. I appreciate the previous generations. I appreciate the heritage and the path that they pioneered and the great work that they did. But I don't want to go back to the good old days. I like air conditioning. I like 16-way seats in my car. Come on, is anybody out there? I love modern conveniences. You know, the cell phone and the iPod and all that stuff. The iPhone. I love it. It's wonderful. It makes life so convenient. And I'm spoiled rotten. I tell my kids, you don't want to go back to the good old days. I was in the good old days, and they weren't that good. I remember, now I'm giving my age away, but I remember before we had cable television. In fact, I go back a little bit further. I remember when it was still black and white. I tell my kids this, they look at me like I got 3 heads. My 15-year-old daughter said to me the other day, she said, "Dad, you're really making this stuff up, aren't you?" I said, all the pain that I've endured. I remember when instead of having 160 channels or whatever it is, we had 3 or 4. And we had rabbit ears on top of the